my advice to a lot of people is don't be afraid to fail, because failure it doesn't mean it's over. It doesn't mean you can't
Exactly.
do it. It means you're learning.
And welcome back to the Riley Black Project with Crystal and John.
Hi.
So we have a very special guest.
Yes.
Sam with Uncharted Customs. How's it going, man?
What's up?
Good. How are you guys?
Good.
We're not too bad. Not too bad.
Hanging in there.
Yeah. Her voice is still a little.
What do you call it? Phoebe from Friends. Smelly cat. Yeah.
Don't watch Friends.
She gets a cold and she has like a really sexy singing voice. And then it goes away
for an episode.
Yeah. But I'm still there 3 weeks later. So what's up? How's your day going?
Not too bad. Pretty busy. It's always busy though, so to be expected.
Yeah. So let's talk about how the heck you got into the laser industry. I'm assuming, as most people, it wasn't your first tool. So, like, what's your background as far as that goes?
So, as far as my business goes, and my first tool was a laser, actually.
Oh, interesting. So how did you find it then?
So I guess a little bit of a backstory. So was in I guess sales and marketing for probably about I've been in total for probably about 10 years now. But before I started doing my own thing, I worked in sports and entertainment. That was kind of my thing right out of college. I really was not athletically gifted enough to play beyond high school, but I wanted to stay in it. So I went for it, and I worked for some professional baseball teams in the minor leagues, and then some collegiate athletic stuff, and kind of moved around. And that was kind of my passion. And eventually, I guess to make a long story short, I ended up coming back home area and settling down with my now wife. And sports wasn't the sports industry was not really good for family life. It was
right.
You're there early and you're there until whatever event is over, until midnight or whatever, so it wasn't very good for that. So I just decided to give it up, and I went into sales in the building materials industry, which I knew absolutely nothing about. I did that for a few years, kind of fake it till you make it type of deal. Then I got a job with Coca-Cola, and I did that for a couple of years. But when the pandemic hit and we were kind of all sent home and twiddling our thumbs, I was like, I am so bored, and I've always had this entrepreneurial spirit about me. I always knew I wanted to do my own thing, but never quite knew what that was going to be.
Same.
And just sitting at home and being on social media, seeing people use different lasers to create things. I was never a creator of anything, oddly enough. But I was like, I think I could.
Most people will create a million things and then find a laser.
Yeah, and I'm kind of the opposite. I was never really a creative person. I'm still trying to get into that and unlock a lot more of that. But so I just asked my wife. I said, let's get a laser. And I kept the Glowforge was what I kept seeing advertisements for. They're very, very, very good at marketing. It's everywhere. And so I was following a lot of people on social media that had those machines, and I always said to myself in years prior, like, I could do that. And that's kind of my entrepreneurial thing, that I could do that.
Yeah.
And so I convinced her. I said, listen, we're going to be home, which we didn't think it was going to be for that long. But we had a recently newborn child at the time. And I was like, we're going to be up. Like, let's just at night do this. And so when we would put her down to bed, we would go in our basement and just create little trinkets and keychains and little small things, and starting out and not really having any expectations. I didn't think it was going to evolve into a business. It was more or less, I'm like, oh, we'll make a Instagram page, and our family and friends will ask us to make stuff. And they did. And that's kind of how it started. And then to get to where I am now, into kind of like full sign making along with other things, one day I just kind of made this I wanted to make a logo of the school that I worked at. I worked at the University of Illinois, and I wanted to make an old school logo. I actually have it right here, and I would just cut it out of this. It's like 6 inches, right? And make it 3-dimensional.
Yeah.
And I did that, and I posted it, and I was like, hey, look what I made. I hand painted everything. And someone said, I like that. Can you make that but bigger?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where it started. And I was like, okay, I really enjoyed that. So then I was like, well, I'm going to need to get some other stuff other than this laser. And so I moved things kind of out to my single stall garage that was stocked with children's toys and, rakes and shovels and everything in between, a fridge and a freezer. And I was like, all right, let's see what I can do with this. And
all right.
legitimately bought my first like power tools. Like I had never used any other tool other than like your household drill and things like that. I had never had any want or need to use any other tools.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of opened that door, and it just got bigger and bigger. I went from
it snowballs quickly, doesn't it?
It does. And so even after a few months of doing that, I still had my full-time job, and I was kind of doing this on the side at night.
Right.
And then we started going back a few months later out into the market a little bit. And I was just like, this is unfulfilling. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do what I'm doing at night and not have to pick between spending time with my family or building these orders out and trying to build something. So I talked it over with my wife, and I decided that, at the end of the year, I was going to quit my corporate job and give it a run full time and see what I can make of it. And I just completed the second full year of doing my own thing. So we're going into year 3.
Hey guys, thanks for watching and listening. If you'd like to support us monetarily now or in the future, here are a few ways.
You can join us on Patreon and reach out to us to run ads on the podcast.
For only $20, by the way.
Only $20.
You could also buy a file from my Etsy shop, some keychain accessories from my website, the course to learn some file designs, or explore one of my partnerships with either Eon or Pyburn.
Yeah, and you can find all those links on our Facebook group. That's the Riley Black Project.
Yep. To support us for $0 a month, you can share the podcast with your laser friends, subscribe to our YouTube channel, interact with our content, share, like, comments. What else?
And subscribe and leave a review on our Apple podcast. And then follow us on social media. That's Facebook and Instagram. The Riley Black Project.
Yes, we appreciate your support so much. We have big dreams of John joining us full time, and anything that you can do monetarily or for free to help us get there, we appreciate it so much.
Well, and fast forward to your Instagram now, you have like 100,000 plus followers. So it definitely escalated.
It escalated pretty quickly over the last year. 2022 was a big growth for me.
Yeah.
So when I first started doing this, like I said, I was in my little single star garage, and I wasn't a big social media person, like showing my face and recording things, and I forced myself to do things that were uncomfortable. And
this is going to be him soon, because like he can do a lot of the like
taking notes.
He does a lot of the creating them either for other people or of like the kids or other video materials, but they're never really of him.
No.
And like and especially with the podcast, every once in a while I'll force him into doing a reel with me, and he's like, oh. So
I'm more of a behind the scenes guy.
Yeah, definitely.
Putting it all together.
Yeah, so he's going to have to start doing that transition to being, just more active on social media and stuff. And it can be tough, in the beginning for sure.
Yeah, it was different. Like I said, I kept forcing myself to get outside my comfort zone, and I went from doing it once or twice a day to now it's like my everyday. Like I went from like watching other people to now I'm teaching so many people what I'm doing. And that's a big part of my page now is education. And so many people want to learn. So I've kind of shifted. Well, it's still my business, and I still do get some orders from it. A lot of those followers are other makers trying to learn various things. And so I've kind of shifted to that and catering to it.
Yeah. Well, when you go outside of your comfort zone, that's when the growth happens.
Right.
Because there's only so much growing you can do when you stay within your comfort zone. Like you kind of, you hit the edge of that.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to grow, you have to go outside of that.
Exactly. And that's really where like the name of my business comes from. Uncharted, that word just means you don't know what's out there. It's not been mapped. It's unknown. And so my big motto is never stop exploring. Now, whatever that can mean to you can be different, but I'm always trying new things every day, whether it's materials or just how to do things and learning from it, and then trying to teach others to do the same and step outside. And
I've seen you do like a new technique to you, but then you record it and you kind of share it with everybody, and you're like, this is what I'm learning along the way. I think I'm going to do it like this. We'll see if that works. And then it either works and you proceed to the next step, or you try something else. Exactly. And that's how that's how we perfect our skills and our talent. And we also find what we enjoy. They're like, I'm in the teaching part of our business as well. And I've found that, people almost kind of like they think that they can take in all this knowledge that we're sharing and be like pros, but they have to then take this knowledge and then practice it and see what works for them.
Exactly. I try to tell people there's no one way to do things. There's, all kinds of different directions you can take the same thing, and you just got to find what works best from you, from equipment and tools to actual material or, products. When I talk a lot about painting and the stuff that I do, there's no one way to do it. And there's obviously a million products. I know what I like, but I encourage everyone even to try what I like, but also try everything else.
And I mean, how many times have you maybe tried what someone else suggests, and you either don't have the right skill set, or maybe you didn't apply it correctly, or it's just not to your standards or to your liking. And you're like, this person absolutely loves this spray paint, and you tried it and you're like, this shit sucks. And it could be even just things like that paint doesn't work for an area that's super humid like it is in Florida. And so like, sure, maybe that paint works amazing for their weather and location, but here, you have extra issues that you have to combat with humidity.
Absolutely. So, that's a big thing with paint. And I mean, when I started, I followed someone else to a T, like what they were doing, and it worked, but I was just like never super satisfied. And so eventually I was like, I just got to do my own thing. So I ended up doing it and finding something else. And now that's kind of what I use. But I know people that use all kinds of different products across the board, depending on what they're doing.
Yeah. And I mean, there's some people who can use, the super cheap paints and make them look amazing. Mm-hmm. And then there's people who like have to use the really expensive stuff in order to, so it all just goes into preference and skill.
Exactly.
So with the new kind of, I guess, teaching shift, what are your goals for 2023? And like, what do you think that's going to look like for you?
Yeah. So when I think about goals for myself, I try not to get so narrow and specific. I try to keep them fluid, because from where I was day one, for me saying like, here's where I want to be, I'm not anywhere near where that was, but I think I'm so much better off than where I thought I wanted to be.
Right.
If that makes sense. So I try not to say, oh, I need to do X and then it's a success, or it's not. I think some of the things that I want to do this year, to expand on the education, I want to get into YouTube. I've never really explored that. And I know it's a really big audience, obviously. It's like the second most used. It's not a search engine, but after Google, it's like the second most used website for information.
My search
engine.
It's something I want to get into. And I know it's not like an overnight type thing where you're just there and then you kind of have it all settled. So I want to start to explore that. That's one thing I want to do. I'm not going to say, well, I need to have, X amount of YouTube videos or followers or whatever.
But just starting. I mean, that could be a goal alone of just
starting. I mean, because it's so much different than, your social media. It's,
Yep.
I mean, the
It
camera
isn't-
orientation is just
So,
different just to start with.
but they have like the YouTube now has YouTube Shorts,
Correct.
and
Yeah.
those are equivalent to Reels. And so, like when I make the the twice weekly Reels for Instagram, I post those same ones on
Exactly.
YouTube and on TikTok, and they all perform completely different.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'll have one get like 15 views or something on Instagram, and then on YouTube a random one I'll get like 3,000 or whatever, and then a couple hundred on TikTok. But a lot of it does actually transfer over, and then depending on how you record your content, a lot of it you could turn into like kind of like a compilation that you put on YouTube or
Mhm.
whatever. But
Yeah. So
yeah.
It's a
I
great place
definitely want to
to
do that.
start because
Mhm.
you can totally take like a week's worth or 2 weeks worth of quote unquote reels or shorts
Yeah.
and string them together, and then that'll be your like weekly video that you put up on YouTube.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, and it's great for long form. So
Yeah.
like if you want to be more in depth about like a certain project, like maybe from start to finish, it's great for that because the attention span on Instagram is
Very short.
literally like 5-10 seconds. So and it's short on YouTube too. You have to get them within the first I don't know 30 to 60 I guess,
Mhm.
and then to keep them throughout. But it's great for like just the whole thing if they don't want to watch your whole story or catch up on several reels on that project. So like kind of like the podcast one, or that went over several days or even several weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that will be kind of one of my first goals. I want to continue to, like I said, expand on the education that I'm trying to provide.
Mhm.
And whatever that may be, I kind of let things just come and form over time.
Organic. Yeah.
I've got people that make suggestions on we should do this, that, and the other, and I just kind of take it wherever it leads me. So YouTube will be one big one. I just want to continue the education in different ways that I can, and then for me, it's just always about personal growth too. Trying new materials always. I try to do something completely new almost every week,
Yeah.
whether it's just
We'll talk about
just one thing.
the Willet laser kind of thing that you do.
Yeah. So now that I have my Thunder, and I have
When
moved
did you
on
get
from
your
the
Thunder?
Glowforge, I got the Thunder. I want to say it was June or July, so it was this past
Okay.
summer. I think it might have been the end of June that it got delivered. So once I got that, I kind of moved on or upgraded, I guess, from the Glowforge, and it was just like mind blowing.
It's
I
like
had
insane
I had been pushing that Glowforge
to
to
the
the
limit.
limit for 2 years,
Right.
and making things in that shouldn't probably have been possible, like
Yep.
bigger things in
Right.
tiny parts and putting it all together
Piecing it together. Yep.
and taking forever.
Yeah. Right.
So
It's possible, but it's like, is it efficient?
yeah. So eventually, I knew I needed something bigger, but it was one of those things where I'm always trying to reinvest in myself and in this business.
Right.
So I honestly don't take a lot from it. Over the last 2 years, I haven't paid myself a ton because
Right.
I have a long-term vision of what I want this to be.
For sure.
And so when I've got the Thunder and it just kind of totally changed the game for me. I was trying to think of different ways that I could again educate but also entertain a little bit, especially
Yeah.
on Instagram. And so this kind of Willet laser was born. I don't know exactly where the idea, I think it came from a couple
Yeah.
multiple different places, but I was just thinking like there's so many things that people cut in their laser, primarily acrylic or wood that they use for their projects. I'm thinking to myself, there are so many different materials that you can put in there
It's
that
like
people don't think
endless.
about. And so
Yeah.
I was like, I'm just gonna throw something in there every week and see what happens.
Yeah.
And for the most part, I mean, anything can go in there. Now, whether it turns out great or not,
Right.
you just got to figure it out. But I think just for me, I usually do it on the fly. I usually don't have these super planned out because I just don't have the time. So I'll kind of look around my house and I'll think, what am I going to throw in there today?
Right.
And so like one time it was a pair of jeans and I'm like, this will be fun. And, people loved it and it worked. And, as long as you get those settings dialed in, which you don't know until you mess around with it for a while.
Yeah.
But there's so many different things.
It's laser safe.
Yeah.
Because so most things you just want to be careful with like plastics or certain leathers and that kind of stuff. But for the most part, and that really just takes a 2-second Google check, or you can go real far on like the copper testing or whatever. But it's one of the huge positives and kind of like, I don't know that I call it a negative, but because you can do so much with a laser, like it almost makes it hard to find like your thing, because you really it really is like almost endless.
Yeah. And that's another reason why I did it, is because I think sometimes people get so narrow-minded. A laser, it engraves and it cuts stuff.
Right.
And it's for those people that are building these signs or whatever. But it can be for fabric. It can be for so many different things in personalization that a lot of people don't think about. So I want them to start to think about that and how they can use it themselves.
Fabric, I've seen a lot of people, not a lot of people, but I've seen a couple people in the groups literally like make jackets and shirts and jeans and pants and stuff that are like on runways or in like shows. Like you can really and if it's not done very often, if you take that item and you perfect your settings, your skill, whatever, you could be like one of few in that category and really like set yourself apart from those kind of things, especially if like you have a passion for fashion, but you also have a laser, or a passion for quilting, or what I mean? And some people actually buy, Jenna, who we've had on before, she bought her laser during the pandemic because they were cutting out the pieces of fabric for face masks by hand. So she bought a laser just to cut out the fabric faster.
Yeah.
So
you good?
Yeah. Just a 4-pack a day smoker over here.
So going back to jumping in and like leaving your corporate job, because that's where I identify with your part of the story there, because I'm kind of in that mode right now. And it's almost like dropping a like a marble in a funnel. You know where the end point is going to be, but you just circle and circle and circle until you finally end up there.
That's a good analogy.
Just talk to me personally. But how was it getting into like finally pulling the trigger on that?
People ask me about that a lot, and because like so many people come to me and say, hey, I really don't enjoy what I do, but it's safe. I have insurance.
It's comfortable.
I don't want to do it, but I need to do it. And so everyone has a different situation. So I try not to tell everyone to be like, just do it, because I don't believe that's right. I don't believe that it is for everyone to just do. I personally am and have been like a serial saver my whole life. And so I was fully prepared for this. Like I said, I knew for many years I wanted to do my own thing. I didn't know what that was going to be. So
you kind of set yourself up.
I set myself up for being able to do it. And so when I did say to my wife, hey, I want to do this, I was set up and I said, I could make zero money for X amount, however, long we had, and we would be okay. And you have a good job. I can be on your insurance. We can work this out. I fully believe that I'm going to make money because I'm currently making money as a side job. So it's not going to be zero. I said, I don't know what it will be. But I believe in myself enough that it's going to be okay. And so I think there's definitely a fine line. It really depends on kind of your socioeconomical, path or where you're at. Everyone is different. Everyone's in a different place. Everyone's, depending on what you're going to sell, if it's service or products or whatever, you got to know your market and then know if it's sustainable. And sometimes you don't know all of the answers. You really can't.
Yeah.
You got to figure out a lot of that along the way. But I think most importantly is you just need to be comfortable with yourself and know no matter what happens, like you're okay with the consequences, good or bad, that you're going to either be okay, it's going to work out, or it's not going to work out. And are you going to be okay having to go back and do something again? Are you okay with that? And so if you have the ability to, like I told her, I said, if this totally bombs and it's terrible and it doesn't work, I've got the skills. I can go back and get another job if I need to pretty quickly, I think, and it would be okay. It wouldn't be my ideal situation, but we would still be okay.
So it kind of reminds me of when we were long distance and we were kind of like making the decision like individually and together of whether like one of us would make the move or not to like
who was going to make the move.
Well, but to pursue it like full time. Because sure, we enjoyed ourselves long distance, but as we know, it doesn't always like work out. But I remember thinking that like, for me, I had to explore the fact that one, it could either work out and here we are, or two, it could not work out. And like, I was thinking of moving to Florida.
Right.
And I had a career. I was in school. I had like a condo that I would have had to sell.
Right.
So it was a whole thing. And it was like, okay, worst case scenario, I fall flat on my face. The relationship doesn't work out. For me, it was eliminating the what if, because if we didn't try it, in my brain, it was like, what if? And, it was like me eliminating that what if was important. Like I needed to do it just for my brain purposes. And then also I knew that even if I fell flat on my face, I was going to learn a shit ton about myself. You know what I mean? So like, it was like, okay, let me, when and if we try this, it's like, even if it fails, that doesn't mean it was like a complete failure, because you still end up learning something about yourself, about life, about whatever in the process. And so it was like, taking that jump, and eventually you were the one who
because I took that away from her and broke up with her before she moved out. It was early on in our relationship. And I was like, we had two, it was almost the same mindset of like this has to, like when you're in a relationship, at a certain point, it has to like move to the next level.
Right.
Well,
we were at that point.
And I was like, well, I'm not moving. I live in paradise. I'm not going to Denver. And I felt that she was in the same boat because she was from Denver. I'm like, well, she must love it over there too, and she's not going to want to move. So what are we doing? So I went ahead and emailed her a breakup letter. Because I don't like confrontation, and phone call was just too personal.
I still hate that.
And a text was just going to lead to a phone call. Listen, so I said, what? Email. Per our last conversation.
And then the best part,
sincerely,
yeah. And the best part was that I don't check my email often. The next day, clearly, I'm still happy. And it's like,
check your email.
Did you check your email? And I was like, oh no, let me go do that. And I was like, oh, okay.
Done.
And then the best part was he referenced a popular song at the time.
We fell in love in a hopeless place.
And then
the club banger that was on every weekend. Wow.
I also hated you for that, because every time I'm in the club, that stupid song will come on, and I'm like, oh, great.
Time to end the night.
But in conclusion,
we can laugh about that now.
We can now. Then it was not so funny. But it's a similar situation too, where you kind of like, eventually you made the jump, but we had to, in order to like to know.
Yeah.
And it's just gonna be, obviously we get as set up as we can.
Mhm.
You know, he tried to find a job in Colorado where I was at the time.
Yeah, I ended up
And
having to leave. I ended up
he
having
had
to leave here without a job.
You know, he tried for 10 months.
Yeah, almost a year. Almost a year. And
he couldn't even get like an interview.
Well,
They
it's
wouldn't.
funny because when I finally did get onto the station that I worked at when I was there, and I got to like the production manager, he had already like he remembered my name. So he was like, "Oh, so you're so and so." Like,
yeah, because you had been like,
because I had been
sending in
constantly
your
sending him
resume,
my resume, or just sending him an email saying, "Hey,
Right.
you know, I'm still very interested," or you know, if you have anything down the line. Like I just try to keep. It was one sided, but I kept the line of communication open.
right.
And had never heard from him until I was in his office and face to face. And now he's not in TV anymore, and we're great friends on Facebook. It's amazing. He's doing his own thing. He's got a hiking vlog. Yeah. And he just hikes all around all the hikes in Colorado. Yeah. And stuff like that.
But I mean, just remember how scary that was, because like, I mean, you had to drive for 3 days from Florida in your Mustang with like all of your stuff.
Yeah.
And
no, not all of it. I got rid of a lot because it was a Mustang.
It was left over. And then with no job, and you were working like, and then when you worked here, you didn't know really what like you wanted to do. And then you had a bunch of like miscellaneous jobs and like, you know, I mean, it was hard for me because like I was working and going to school. So I was working full time and going to school part time. And
I was just
filling out
applications and sitting on the couch.
I'd come home at like 8 o'clock at night after I left at like 6 or 7 in the morning. He's like sleeping on the couch and I'm ready to stab you in your neck.
It's tiring staying at the house. Not
Listen,
doing
I get it. I understand now. But at the time I was like, this motherfucker. He's
well,
sleeping.
I used that time as kind of like exploring.
Yeah.
Like you say, Uncharted. Yeah. I use that time to kind of like say, hey, maybe this is the universe giving me an opportunity to like start something new.
Right.
So I tried it, and I was ping ponging between like being a mechanic and cutting hair, and you know, like just things that I kind of like liked. And then ultimately, I'll never forget. I was working at Home Depot, and it was a Sunday, which for me in Colorado, like coming from Miami, where we're not a huge sports town, like they are, like the city stopped for the Broncos.
It literally shuts down
only because they were winning. Now the city's booming on Sundays because they lose every Sunday.
You don't know that.
But now they're the Dolphins and reality hit. But so the city was shut down. So I'm working on a Sunday during the football game,
like zero customers.
Yeah, zero customers, nothing. I'm just walking down the aisles of Home Depot and I'm like, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
Like what I have all this TV back at the time. It was like 11 plus years in TV and news. And I was like, what am I doing? So I, reached out to, Facebook. I put out the call, and within hours, I was already in conversations to set up an interview and everything like that. And I remember when I put on the headset and I heard the director again after, at the time it had been like 3 months.
Yeah.
And it just like, oh, okay.
Felt like home.
This is what I'm supposed to do. Right. Yeah. This is me. Because like,
well, and even the transition you're trying to make now, like it may not be news, but it's going to be this.
No, it's the same industry.
Same
yeah, it's the same industry. So it's not anything like outside. Obviously, at first I'll probably be more involved in making things and with the laser, only because like right now
that's our world right now.
Well, it's more established. So that's going to be like the big, like the moneymaker first until like who knows? Maybe not. Maybe it'll just take off as soon as I'm able to dedicate all my time.
This is going to go either.
Right. But it's definitely within the same realm. So yeah, it's the mindset is really what.
But that jump, you not having a job, you working in landscaping and Home Depot showed you what you wanted to do.
And car rental.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That car.
We did it all.
No, it didn't. Yeah. No, it didn't.
No,
it didn't suck at all.
No, it sucked when you had to do the car washes. It was 20 degrees outside.
No, because what I was able to do was close that in, because it used to be a mechanic shop. So like they took the lifts out and everything. So it's like all open space where we would clean the cars, and I was able to close the doors. So when I went in there, I would especially the Fiat 500s. I used to pull that emergency brake and do donuts inside that.
Oh my god. Boy.
Yeah, it was a fun job in that part, but
And I bet in everything that you did, you can take a little piece of it and put it
Yes.
into what you're doing now, because
100%.
Yep.
that's exactly what I did, even when I wasn't doing something that I loved, because I look back on it now and I'm like, that experience is giving me, extra skill and confidence now to what I need to do here. So,
Exactly.
and I also resonate with your story about kind of moving too. So I'm from Illinois and that's where I'm at now. But when I was bouncing around with different teams, I moved to Boise, Idaho, so out west as well. And I was the sales director for the baseball team in Boise, and I moved all the way out there. And after a year, my now wife was back here in Illinois, and we kind of reconnected, and we were going through some of the same difficulties. And I fell in love as well, and I literally said, I'm quitting sports and I'm moving home without a job. So I drove 24 hours back across the country with
That's crazy.
my car,
like a similar...
and I came home without a job. And I was like, I'm going to figure it out. And that's how I started in the building materials industry, which I knew nothing about.
Right.
My whole life was sports before that. But I was like, you teach me what it is, I know how to sell it, and I know how to talk.
Very teachable is the good thing. He could pretty much do anything as soon as he teaches himself anything he doesn't know from YouTube.
Yeah.
So like
I said,
he could do
I use
almost
YouTube,
anything.
I use YouTube as my search engine because I'm very visual too. So I can't I can read something and get it, but it's a lot easier, especially having the resource of YouTube, to just type it in YouTube, see if there's a video. Now, if there's not a video, then I'll have to go to Google the traditional way. But yeah. Is there anything else that you want to share about your experience, or any advice for newer struggling laser owners?
Yeah, I mean, I get a lot of questions or just statements from people that said, hey, I bought a laser, it's been sitting here for 3 months and I haven't done anything with it. I don't know what to do. And they had that initial excitement of I'm getting it, and
it can be very overwhelming when it gets
overwhelming. And so I think my advice to a lot of people is, don't be afraid to fail, because failure it doesn't mean it's over. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It means you're learning. And just get out and do it. Whether you just got that laser or you've had it forever, put something in it, go to YouTube, figure out how to turn it on. There's a video, I promise, of every laser out there. And just go for it. I mean, some of them, the Glowforge, are more plug and play, and it literally will walk you through. You put this material in.
Yeah, it was perfect, because I didn't even know what a laser was. And so when it showed up, it I look up to the people who just start with an industrial laser right out the gate. It's totally possible. But for me, it would have been way more intimidating than getting the Glowforge first, because it kind of was a slow, introduction.
I mean, it's all on the screen, and it tells you push the button. You
literally push the button.
Drag and drop on the screen.
You don't have to think about settings for the most part. Right.
And then so you get the larger, more industrial lasers, and you kind of got to figure that out. There's starting to be a lot more information and libraries for settings, but even so, you still need to tweak that sometimes. So I always say, find a video, start with that. If those settings aren't right for you, or your wattage laser is a little bit different, just adjust from there, and you will eventually get it. You just have to not be afraid of that failure.
Well, there's a million groups and resources, and you know what I mean? If you try, so say just choose one thing. For one, engraving is the easiest. So I guess if you're scared of something, buy some blanks that laser blanks, and just start engraving things and start with that. It's a little bit less scary. It's not as much power, you don't have to worry about flashback as much. And then if your settings aren't good, go to one of the many groups that are out there, or one of us that, is that you see on social media, and say, these are my settings. This is the material. How can I make this better? And until you get comfortable, we can tell you, oh, your speed is too fast, or slow it down, or up the LPI, or add more power. Because I remember, initially I had to adjust my settings, but I had no idea how and where. Do I adjust settings and power? Do I just adjust settings, or just adjust power? And so until you get comfortable, use those groups as a resource. They're a free resource. They're there. We're literally there to help you. We want you to be successful. And we know how scary it is, and you don't have the knowledge yet. And so give us all the information you have, and we'll give you tips on, try this, try that. And then you'll start to get more comfortable and start to learn how those settings work, and then how to make them work for yourself. But you really do you have to choose something and go.
Right. You just have to start.
One thing at a time. One thing at a time. Like with my Will It Laser series, most of the time, I know it's capable of working.
Right.
But I don't know what I need to do to it until I do it. So I'll run through, like the most recent one I just did was ceramic tile. I bought 12 tiles just because I knew I needed them. You know? And the first 2, I didn't even see anything happen to it really. And I just had to keep going and eventually got there. And I think I still need to tweak it even more, but it's just one of those things. Or I get asked a lot about tumblers. And because it's rotating, I mean, I'm like, it's just a big giant mathematical equation inside that computer,
right? And
it's doing what you're telling it to. So if something's going wrong, you're telling it to do something wrong. It's not the laser's fault. It's doing what you're telling. So a lot of times people say, well, it's being elongated, or it's it's not coming out right. And I say, here's the steps. You need to adjust your steps and the rotation, or whatever it might be, to make sure that it comes out, because it's a totally different ballgame.
Well, speaking of tumblers, when you engrave a cylindrical, so like your logo, you'd probably need to make some adjustments for a tumbler, because when you engrave something a circle, it's still a circle, but it's an optical illusion, and it'll make it look oval or oblong. So you have to make some manual adjustments, and it'll look funky on the screen, but then it will look like a circle on your tumbler. So it's just little things like that. But again, you won't know until you try. You have to try. Maybe you might see a post. Yeah.
I've got about 15 tumblers sitting there that have marks all over them that test on.
We did a giveaway with one of ours.
We did.
Nice.
Emily got it.
Yep. Well, hers was the one that was perfected.
Oh, hers was the one.
No, okay. I have 2 that are literally covered from top to bottom, all the way around with our logo of testing different settings and powers. And then another level of difficulty to tumblers is that different colors and different brands perform differently. Right. So sure, you can pin down your settings, and then you go try this other color and it doesn't work at all, or it burns it, or it doesn't get all the way through. So what I personally do still, even though I've done quite a few tumblers by now, is I always have at least 1 or 2 extra in that color for me to have, just in case. Yeah. And then it usually ends up that one of them is my tester cup in that color. So I have a tester red, I have a tester black, so then that way I can go test that settings. Logo on that. Yeah. And then you hopefully don't end up wasting one. And if you do, you have an extra.
And if you have tumblers and you're hearing this and you're be like, oh man, do I really want to get tumblers? They're still everyone's favorite thing to do for the most part.
And this is a good time to plug the fact that I'm a Pyburn affiliate.
Oh, there you go.
So
if you want a Pyburn.
Perfect time for a coughing attack.
Yep. I don't know what the promo code is or what you have to do.
Riley Black.
Riley Black.
And so the code is currently $25 off, but there's rumors that might be changing. But yeah, you get $25 off, and then I get a little bit of something.
Yeah.
And then I love my rotary. Huh?
Plug alert.
Yeah. But I mean, I love my rotary. I mean, once you get comfortable, it did take me several weeks to get comfortable with them. But you know, the blanks are anywhere from like $5 to $10. But once you have like the graphic, it takes 5 minutes, like tops usually, unless you're doing like a full wrap.
Right.
But it takes like 5 minutes to engrave, another 5 minutes to clean, and now you just made $20. You know, or more if you get like a bulk order or whatever. And everyone, like almost everyone, loves them a good tumbler.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I don't know how many tumblers I got now.
Right.
Our cabinets are just full of cups. Almost like we don't even need this many. Like there's not enough people living here to use these.
All right.
You good? Hold on. No. Okay.
Good.
You're good now?
Not really. I'm gonna let you.
You gonna let me do it?
Yep.
All right. Well,
social media.
Oh, yep. So where can people find you?
Right now I have Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all at Uncharted Customs. Fairly simple. It's all the same across the board, and like I said, hopefully YouTube at some point in the near future.
Yeah, and that
if you need a video editor.
Yeah, if you need one. But also I was gonna mention that Will It Laser. Right now you're doing like shorts of that?
Yeah, so everything is just on Instagram. It's on Wednesday. It's my Will It Laser Wednesday. I do it every Wednesday. Sometimes the day before, sometimes on Wednesday with the final hour. I like to have everything posted at least here on in Central Time between 11 and noon. That's kind of my space where I like to get it out. So before lunch for everyone else. And I'm going to continue to do that as long as I can keep finding things to stick in there.
I was gonna say that's a good very good YouTube. Yeah, very good YouTube. If you're not aware of it yet, but there's something very similar. Call it Will It Blend, and they have like this huge industrial blender. It's not huge. It looks like a regular blender, but it's just very strong. And they just like you do with the laser, they just put a bunch of things in there and see if will it blend. And that's done very well. I haven't heard of it recently. They might have ran out of things to blend. But they've blended everything from like iPhones to whatever. So that'd be a great series for you to start
with. On YouTube,
with.
you can do playlists.
Yeah.
So you could do a Will It Laser playlist. And I mean, you could even turn your current material. You know, you would have to have those like blurry sides because, you know, I'm sure everything you filmed for the most part vertical. But, you know, I mean, you can either stretch it or whatever. But I would, even with the blurry sides, because it's solid material, you could turn that, you know, into a playlist on YouTube easy, and you don't even have to worry about new, because you've already done it.
Yeah, I've got all the video, so I've got all the raw footage. So
and so putting that on YouTube will be a huge asset to people, because there's a lot of people, again, that I'm realizing now, we have completely separate audiences, with the ones who find us through Instagram, the ones who find us through YouTube, the ones who find us through podcasts, or the ones who find us through Facebook groups. Like, they're all like, some of them overlap, some of them, you know, do all of it. But like, you'll find brand new people on YouTube who have no idea who you are.
Exactly.
Just by looking up, you know, say they look up like you did golf balls or something like that. So
I find that the audiences for all of those are so much different. And because I do get a lot of questions about, you know, where do you succeed or where do you sell? And like I said before, my Instagram's kind of been that education channel, but my Facebook page, which is much smaller, is more local business to me. And then TikTok's like a totally different animal, where everybody just wants you to make something that they want, and they don't want to give you anything for it. I can't tell you how many times I make something and they say, make me one. And it's like, okay, buy it. And they're like, no,
pay for it.
Like, I don't want to, just do it. Like, it's just, they're just totally different audiences, different age ranges. And, you know, so like you said, the more of those that you can be on, the better. Because you are going to reach all of those different people.
For sure.
Well, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be on the show with us.
Yeah.
And for everybody else, stay tuned for our life updates.
Cool.
Be right back. And we're back. That was a fun conversation.
It was.
Yeah,
Lots of good little nuggets.
Little nuggets, yeah. Yeah. And you heard a little bit of our relationship, how it started.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we talked about it
We have.
on a couple episodes, but depending on how far, like what episode you started on, or
And if
how
this is
far
your
back
first
you went.
episode, welcome.
Yeah. Yeah, welcome.
Ooh, so
Life update. I'm still sick.
Yep, still sick. If you haven't watched already our interview where we were interviewed,
Yes,
is up.
It's finally live.
Yep,
yeah, from Laser Everything. So go check that out.
Yep, we've got a lot of new followers and a lot of new subscribers on YouTube from it, which is great.
Yeah.
It's a fun conversation. So go check us out there.
It was weird to be on the other side for once.
Right? Like having to answer questions and not running the conversation, because it's always a conversation.
Yeah.
But we kind of try to steer it,
right,
you know,
kind of
like when to move on and that.
Right.
And to not have to
was
kind of nice just to sit here and answer
the questions. Yeah.
And not have to, for me, not have to worry about how am I going to piece it together.
Right.
I just answer
and
questions
like,
and let
what
somebody
time
else.
Is it or
right.
Right.
So yeah,
nice.
it was a good time. What else? I don't know. There's so much going on that I'm not sure if we can talk about or not. So you know,
we're just we're making little moves.
Yes.
I don't think I want to talk about a couple of them yet.
Right.
Soon though, we're working on logos and that kind of stuff.
There's a bunch of stuff that we're working on behind the scenes.
I wanted to
stop
coughing. I wanted to give another shout out to everyone who's watched the year-end review that was posted in January. I've had so many people reach out to me after that episode, which I expected, but I didn't expect, I guess.
Right.
And it's awesome and not awesome at the same time of how many people are either feeling the same right now or felt the same 10, 20 years ago when their kid was also JR's age.
Right. It's a tough age.
So yeah, it's tough. And especially if there's something else going on like ADHD or autism, or maybe it's not even any of those things and it's just behavioral.
Right.
Like parenting is fucking hard.
Yeah.
So like, I appreciate every single one of you who's reached out to me. The one who reached out to me recently, she joked that, she said, she was like nervous to reach out to me. And I was like, I'm a normal person. She was like, you are not normal. She called me a laser goddess, which was, it was right. I was like, whoa there. And she's like, you're one of the big deals. And like, while I understand that, I don't feel that way because again, I'm just me. I'm a normal person. I struggle with this business like the rest of you. Right. I'm a hot mess. You see the highlight reel for the most part. I make sure to like show, the other stuff as well.
Right.
But really like you are seeing like for the most part, the highlight reel, and like, just know that like in the background, like I'm not all put together.
Yeah, you don't see the times on the couch on the phone answering different questions from different groups and moderating and stuff like that.
And just
when you don't
the times where
anything.
I don't feel like doing anything, or the times where I try to do something and it fails, or I don't even make it into the office. Hell, I haven't lasered in several weeks, and I miss it. But like every day, I just don't have that opportunity to get in there because right now, honestly, I'm having to focus on my health, and I'm doing like, I'll fulfill the couple orders we have for the day. I'll do, my posts. I'll make a reel from, content I probably already made forever ago, or if it's a simple reel and I just need to record something, real quick.
Right.
So yeah, I'm not putting the pressure on myself that like, although my bank account could probably be like, you should make a couple sales. Like I can't rush it because I'm not like well right now.
And I don't know how well this is translating in the audio.
Yeah.
But I hear it in my headphones. We do not have a plastic bag underneath the table, or she's not sitting on one. That's her.
That's my breathing.
Yeah. So if it sounds like a plastic bag crunching, that's
this.
That's her beatboxing.
Yeah. So like when I try to fall asleep at night, my wheezing will like legit keep me up. So basically it's probably bronchitis or my asthma flaring up. A cold turned into this, and then now it's just trying to get it to calm down. And it's a struggle. I have a chest x-ray scheduled next week to make sure there's nothing else going on.
Right.
But right now I'm living on my inhaler and cough meds, and I hear it a lot.
You hear it? Yeah. I've been hearing it the whole episode.
So have I, but like it's like just even more apparent. But yeah, so and that's something I don't usually do in the past, and I'm trying to do this year, is that even though it's so hard for me because we have these like goals and all of that, if I push it too far, I'm going to end up putting myself further behind.
Right, in a worse situation.
Right. And so like I remember when I first got really sick, like, it's hard for me, but I asked you to stay home.
Right.
And it's like, and that was, I think, like clutch in the fact that I didn't get worse.
Right.
Because I knew I needed to sleep that day. And so like I just imagining taking care of 2 kids when I felt that way.
Right.
I'm like, this is gonna go south if I don't have you, stay home, which is hard because I think then I injured my back and you had to call in a couple days later, and it was rough because it's like it's January and you've called in twice in 1 week, but it's like, I mean, you can only do
so much.
Like life happens.
I mean, hey, listen, last year I started off the year with 5 days off because I got COVID. So we're right back to the same start.
Right. But we're just shifting our focus, and like, the chaos is never going to not stop happening. We do the best we can each day with what's tossed at us, and like find the positive. Like I'm trying to find the positive, and like me injuring my back actually showed me I have something going on with my neck that I didn't even know existed, and I wouldn't have explored treatment on because I deal with it. It's not really that bad for me.
Right. And you feel like maybe I slept wrong, or maybe it's our mattress. We need a mattress, or maybe
the position I'm in when I'm working, when I'm taking care of the kid, like there's a lot of sitting. We're sitting at dinner, we're sitting on the couch, where I'm in my office, I'm sitting in the car, we're sitting now. Like there's a lot of sitting, and there's a lot of like, my head like that. And I didn't know that there was an issue because I don't have like,
we also don't have the greatest posture.
Exactly. And the pain that I have is just, it's normal to me.
Right.
And so
it becomes normal.
Right. And so when he was like looking at my x-rays for my back, and he was like, nah, your back, I can fix, no problem. He's like, now your neck. And I'm like, uh-oh. So the positive is that, yeah, sure, it sucked injuring my back, especially like hours before the Eon party.
Right.
Like me injuring my back, like actually found an issue that is at the point where I can correct it.
Right.
And it's not, it hasn't gone too far where, there's no fix, or the fix is, only
very
a Band-Aid
evasive.
or right. Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, just shifting our focus this year and making sure, which we have tons of goals, but which ones like take precedent, like which ones do we want to focus on now? And then the other ones kind of, either happen later or we just don't show as much love to or whatever. Right. So
prioritizing.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. And then I'm going to actually today hopefully find a developmental pediatrician for JR. I looked last night, and the first one that popped up in our new little health app, insurance app, I looked her up, and the reviews have been something that I've been struggling with the other ones, and she came up with like glowing reviews. Perfect. So I'll be calling her hopefully after this.
Yeah, hopefully she has room this year.
Yeah, right.
Because they don't apparently.
Yeah, but a couple listeners and friends have mentioned that is something that you need in these situations. So we're going to do that and kind of see where that takes us, because we've been struggling finding the right care for him.
Yeah, and I mean, although he has been, knock on wood, he has been doing better than back in October when we first started, and 100%. All this was like at the height.
Yeah.
There's still a lot more bad days. I mean, well, I feel like they're evening out bad and good days.
They
but
are,
but the
like,
bad days
we don't
just
get
seem so hard.
Well, we don't get through any day without a
glimpse,
teaser
yeah,
of it.
right.
Like, it's not
And kind of walking on eggshells to prevent
100%.
Yeah,
And
for
like
sure.
I can tell that we're both, like, all three of us are getting better at, like, all handling our emotions a little bit better,
Right.
which makes it so that usually when they do happen, they're not nearly as long on all parts, on JR's parts, on yours, on mine. So that's good, but we still need more than just where we're at now.
But it shows that what we've been doing has been helping.
Yeah, and
even though it seems like
I'm
we kept hitting dead ends, we did take apparently a little something from each
every single one. Yeah.
So
and
she's taking the cough from all of them.
Yeah. And we last week we went to Taekwondo for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And although he didn't participate, he was watching.
Oh, that's
what is what? Oh.
The whole episode, I see a little something here. I'm like, what is it?
Because you brought it towards you to fix it, and then Okay. So with the Taekwondo, he was watching it.
Mm-hmm.
The master or the owner of the place, came over to him at one point and was like doing kicks with him.
Started working with him.
And told us like, the first one we went to, although it was really great, it was a lot
very
more
structured.
It was very structured and a lot more like forceful. Like you have to sign up like now or the price goes up immediately kind of thing. And this guy was like, one, it's cheaper a month. And two, he was like, come and watch as many times as you want until he gets comfortable. Which is great because it's like, who wants to pay $150 a month for him to never want to go do it or whatever. I'd rather go watch for a month and then whatever. So and it's right across the street from Jackson's daycare. Like it's pretty,
and it's easier and it's easy. It's less anxiety for you to take him by yourself.
Alone. Yes.
Once or twice a week.
Right.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because it is right by Jackson. So it'd almost be like you picking him up, but not really because you got
So
we'll see.
We're looking forward to that because Innie actually asked about it this week.
Yeah.
Because he still has swimming, but thankfully swimming ends early enough for him to go watch or participate if he wants to. And he was like, "Oh, I get to do karate this week." And I'm like, "Yeah." So yeah,
fingers crossed
it works out because I think it'll be great for him.
Yeah.
Once he gets over the fear of just starting.
Right. And while you're helping us, because we already ran the ad for our social and everything like that. But what's not on that ad is Riley Black Media.
Yes.
So while you're subscribing to us on YouTube and following us on Instagram and everything like that, make sure to follow Riley Black Media on Instagram and Facebook.
Yep.
And if you're going through any struggles editing or anything like that, and maybe you don't want to hire me on, feel free to email me or DM me for any tips, or I can help you out there too. Again, that's Riley Black Media on Facebook and Instagram, and RileyBlackMedia@gmail.com.
Yeah.
See how I got through that with getting better.
Look at you.
Well, thank you guys for watching and sticking up to the end. And as always, thank you for all your support. And it's been another great episode of the Riley Black Project. Chris and John.
Bye.
Maybe we're all done.